Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to an incredible game from chess.com Speed Chess Championship in 2023. We're now in the semi-final stage, and in the semi-finals we have now really two great matches, two spectacular matches. The first one is the one between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley. So, and in the other semi-finals we have also really spectacular match between MVL and Hikaru Nakamura. So let's see now what happened in the first semi-finals. The semi-finals between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley is over. The match was really spectacular in my opinion. Really great games we have seen. But we're starting now the semi-finals with a beautiful bullet game played by Magnus Carlsen and Wesley. So the players had only 1 minute on the clock plus 1 second increment per move, which is really fast time format. And I want you always consider when we are analyzing now this game that this is bullet chess. It's really spectacular. It's almost impossible how Magnus is sometimes playing these types of games in this faster time format where he sees everything, where he's so prepared. We see so beautiful and immortal tactical shots. In my opinion, a really beautiful game that you see. And at the end of the video I'm going to of course reveal the result of the semi-finals between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. Magnus opened with the move knight to f3. Here we have c5 by Wesley, and now the game here transposed immediately into the Sicilian defense with the move e4. We have d6 modern variations. Now Magnus goes into the so-called delayed Alapin variation, prepares of course the move d4, and after something like c takes d4, then he could connect two powerful pawns in the center of the board, could have progressive ideas then in the later stage of the game. Here Wesley continues with knight to f6. Magnus goes now with h3. This is a very important, I think, and beautiful prophylactic move, and although maybe this is a bullet game, I think you can use this beautiful approach by Magnus Carlsen maybe in some of your preparations against the Sicilian defense. h3 is really beautiful move because, as we said, we're trying to get the pawn on d4. The knight on f3 is controlling the square d4, so that's why with the move h3 we're preventing some pinning ideas by black with the move bishop to g4. Of course, if black continues with knight to e4, then it's game over immediately because of this beautiful stunning tactic with queen to a4, and the game is over then for black. So that's why Wesley continues with normal development. Knight to c6. Magnus is playing bishop to d3. Will eventually play bishop to c2, and then again with the normal plan to hit the center with the move d4. g6. Here Wesley goes into dragon Sicilian structures. Magnus continues with his plan, and now e5 by Wesley, so keeping good control of the d4 square. Magnus goes d4 anyway. We have c takes d, c takes d, e takes d, and now kingside castling by Magnus Carlsen. He is not taking the pawn immediately because he wants to keep his options. If something gets cleared somehow in the e-file, so he wants to have a fast progress with the rook. And basically there are now two good choices what you can do with the black pieces. You can of course play bishop to g7, but in my opinion the more aggressive approach would be to play the move bishop, queen to b6. Here Wesley continued with bishop to g7. Queen to b6 I think is a little bit tricky because now white has to battle for the pawn that he has lost. So for instance, white has to now continue with this plan, bishop to a4, hit the knight. That's of course protecting the d4 square. Now we have bishop to d7 probably by black, and now with knight to a3, knight to c4, or knight to b5, white is continuing the pressure. Again, black cannot pick up the pawn on e4 because of rook to e1. But actually look at this. Now finally I think black can play bishop to g7, and even if white continues with this plan to hit the pawn on d6 here, then we simply castle. You play maybe knight to d6, and it seems so that this is strange. Why would black allow this kind of position? But now you have a beautiful liberating tactic with knight to e5, and I think black should be perfectly fine, hitting the knight on f3, hitting also the knight on d6, forcing maybe trades of further trades of pieces. This pawn can be then later supported by the rook on the d file because you have already cleared the square with your queen. So although this is an isolated pawn, later it can be supported with the rook and maybe cause some damage then in the later stage of the game for white. So that's, as I said, maybe a line that you should also memorize if this happens to you with the black pieces. But Wesley so continues with bishop to g7. I'm not saying this is wrong or something, but I really like more maybe this queen to b6 approach. So here Magnus finally grabs now the pawn on d4. Here we have kingside castling, knight to c3, rook to e8, hitting the pawn on e4, and now knight to b5. Magnus is simply going now for the weak pawn on d6, and now comes already a critical moment in the game. And I was really surprised, although this is a bullet game, I was really surprised that Wesley saw already in move 12 made already a huge mistake in his opening prep, because here the only way to survive this attack around the square d6 is to play a tricky move, rook to e7. What can you do? For instance, if you play here queen to d6, then you have this resource. Rook to d7, you're kicking away the queen drops back in. Now with the move a6, the knight has to step back. There's simply no good square for the knight. You could maybe here get the knight on a3, and okay, black has lost a pawn, but look at this beautiful activity on the d file. This bishop will maybe later come into the game. We have also progressive ideas with b5, b4. This bishop is already dangerous. So I think with this method, Wesley could have survived the attack. So, but here, after move knight to b5, here Wesley made a huge mistake with a rook to e6. Magnus continues with bishop to b3. Now we have rook to e7 by Wesley, and now knight to d6. Finally, Magnus grabs now this weak pawn on d6. Now the whole concept with rook to d7 is a little bit different, because the bishop is suddenly on b3. In the previous line, it was on c2, where it was not so dangerous, of course. Now it's a different story. Magnus immediately continues the pressure with bishop to f4. What could you do? In the game, knight to h5 was played by Wesley. So, but even if you try, for instance, knight to e8 here, to further continue your pressure against the knight on d6, then you have this tactic, knight to f7. For instance, if you pick up the queen, then the problem is, of course, knight to d8 comes with a beautiful check. You have to step back, and now white is winning decisive material. The game is over here for black. So that's why after move knight to f7 or something, you should play here rook to f7. But it's, again, not so good for black. Look at this, bishop to f7 with a check, king to f7, queen to b3. If you cover yourself with bishop to e6, then we have this one, queen to b7 is falling here. You can maybe cover yourself, but now look at this, white keeps the attacking flow. I would not really love to play anymore this game from black's perspective. You can maybe try, I don't know, to force the trades of queens, but now we keep the queen on the board. After something like queen to c6, I think we can even trade off the queens, maybe keep the pressure. But with this, I don't know, 3 extra pawn and the rook for 2 minor pieces, I think white could have a solid and good game. So also, as I said, knight to e8 here, not a good continuation for black. Knight to h5 was played by Wesley, so hitting the bishop on f4, but now Magnus plays knight to f7 anyway. Very wild stuff. After rook to f7, again, the same sequence, bishop to f7, king to f7, and now queen to b3. What should you do? Again, maybe the only way to survive this attack is to play the move bishop to e6, maybe. But still, it's, I think, again, unpleasant for black. Again, this method, queen to b7, you have to cover now with your knight, knight to e7, and now bishop to g5. Keeps, of course, the pressure here. If you play, of course, rook to b8, then we have even this one, bishop to e7. You pick up the queen, we pick up also the queen. If you pick up the bishop, then you're not protecting anymore the rook here. Then again, it's game over for black. What you could do here after move bishop to g5 is then to play bishop to f8. But again, as I said, we play a really dynamic progressive chess with e5. You're trying to maybe get your king back. Now we hit the queen again. Again, I think black would love to simplify the game by trading off the queens, but now with queen to f3, and maybe you play something, I don't know, queen to c6. You're desperate maybe to force the trades of queens. Now we have this resource. Look at this, knight to e4, with the idea to play g4, knight to f6, rook to c1 is an opportunity. So brutal attacking formation, I think white can build immediately in this state of the game. So as I said, bishop to e6 also not so good because of queen to b7. So here after move queen to b3, Wesley tried king to f8. It's even worse because Magnus continues with his plan. A rook to d1, we have knight to d4, we have now the check, queen to b4, king to f7, and now bishop to e3, hitting the knight on d4. What should you do? So far the knight is protected on d4, but we can always play something like knight to b5. This is dangerous, the queen is in danger. Knight to d5 is an opportunity. What you could do maybe is to play on some dirty tricks with queen to h4, maybe with some ideas. Bishop takes h2 and then queen to h3, maybe force a perpetual check or something. At least you're trying to battle somehow. But then look at this, after rook to d4, what happens? You're trying maybe bishop to h3, now we play queen to b3, and now you're running after rook to d3 in a beautiful checkmate sequence. You don't have time to build your attack here around the square g2, because bishop to c5 is going to happen. You have to step back. Now the queen is coming into the game. The game is over again here for black. Really wild stuff. So here after move bishop to e3, that's why Wesley tried here knight to c6, but after queen to b3, believe me or not, in this particular position, here Wesley so resign. Again, if you try here something, I don't know, bishop to e6, then again would pick up this one. You can pick up here the queen on b3, but now we pick up the rook, and again it would be game over here for black. Pooh. This was crazy, incredible game here by Magnus. Here Magnus, like usual, in many times we have seen it before, played without inaccuracies, mistakes or blunders, which is really crazy in a bullet chess game. Many things can go wrong, of course, in bullet chess. Magnus kept calm here, played progressive ideas, played really great attacking ideas. And I think, although as I said, it's maybe a bullet game, still I find this this opening preparation by Magnus Carlsen very attractive because of this move h3, delayed Alapin. As I said, if you have problems, you can try this method and maybe destroy the Sicilian defense in a beautiful way. So, okay, the result after many games was a clear result, we have to say, for Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen finished with 20 points against Wesley, so 7 points. Is now moving up to the finals, where he waiting, of course, the winner of the super match between MVL and Hikaru Nakamura. Probably chess fans wants to see again a new spectacular match between Hikaru and Magnus Carlsen, but MVL has, I think, also great chances. MVL also used to beat Magnus Carlsen in faster time formats, also like Hikaru Nakamura, we have to say it, but MVL, I think, has also good chances. It will be also a beautiful super semifinals, but then, of course, a beautiful spectacular super final for sure. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. Really interesting ideas by Magnus Carlsen in the delayed Alapin. If you want to see more chess games here on my YouTube chess channel, you can check out my commented chess games and also my commented chess games played by computers, where we analyze really the most brutal, the most spectacular games played by top engines. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say? Chess is the best, of course.